Hello viewers, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new around here. No Rocket League today. Well, it is kind of Rocket League based, but no Rocket League gameplay today. Today is, as you can see on the screen, my opinion on the LAN performances of the players that were there. Now, this is the top 25 LAN players list at the Rotterdam Major. I did do a list pre-major, so if you haven't checked that one out, you can do. It's up to you. I mean, the major's been played now, so probably not much point. But this list looks quite different to the one that I predicted, I would say. I mean, there's some things that I got accurate. There's a few players here that far exceeded anything that I expected, and some players that didn't quite do as well as I thought. Without further ado, we're going to get straight into it, and we're obviously going to start at number 25, who is a player from OCE, who goes by the name Amphis. Now, his team, Power, I would say they exceeded expectations. I thought they looked really good for large parts of the Swiss stage. They didn't quite make it out of Swiss stage, unfortunately for them. But for me, the MVP on that team in particular was Amphis. I think Fiva and Torsos both had good tournaments as well. But for me, Amphis was the standout player. He was the one making things click with, as you can see, games played, GP, stands for games played, 18. Scored 12 goals and got 4 assists and 34 saves as well, which is pretty good all-round stats. Not bad at all. Maybe a little bit low on the assists, but a decent goal to game ratio and plenty of saves as well. So it's pretty good. Before we carry on, actually, I will say there's a little bit of sway on the team performances. I know this is an individual's list. There is a slight bit of sway on how well the team did as well, on where I've put the players on this list, if that makes sense. So next up, number 24, we have Chicago. He was doing okay. I mean, obviously, as we know, G2 didn't make it out of Swiss stage. As you can see in the bottom left there, they were 9th through 11th. But they did go positive in games played, which was 10 and 9. Now, Chicago, I thought, was having an okay performance. His goals to game ratio is certainly very good, but maybe not doing enough work off the ball, aside from the goals, you know, to back up his teammates. It's easy for me to say, of course. I can sit here and point out flaws if I really wanted to about everybody, but I'm not going to do that because who am I, you know? But yeah, number 23, maybe a little bit of a surprise to a lot of people, and a surprise to myself as well. It is Beastmode. Now, I think a lot of people aren't going to be happy with this. This is my opinion, so it's also stats based as well as team performance. Now, V1 did get to Championship Sunday. They did, obviously, as you know, bail out 5th through 8th. They did lose in the quarterfinals. And for me, V1 as a team was solid, because it doesn't matter even if V1 aren't playing well, they're always going to be pretty solid as a team, right? But as an individual's performance, I didn't think Beastmode was very good. He didn't really do what you want Beastmode doing. I mean, he made a lot of saves, as you can see. 51 saves in 20 games is pretty crazy, to be honest. But only 8 goals and only 8 assists. You know, you want Beastmode, you want him scoring the goals as well. You know, it's up to Comm to sort of pave the way for Beastmode to score the goals. And maybe Comm didn't do what we usually see Comm doing. You know, maybe he wasn't aggressive enough or didn't get enough demos to allow Beastmode to get those goals. But at the end of the day, you can't always just rely on somebody else to get where you need to be. Sometimes you got to take over and do it yourself, and some players on this list did do that, and they've done that very well, and that's why they're a lot higher up. Beastmode for me didn't do enough to get above 23 on this list. And number 22 is next, and that's Aztral from Team Liquid. I wanted to put Aztral a little bit higher because his stats are decent for one, but it's not always all about stats, as you will see in this list as it goes on. He did play 29 games, scored 16, assisted 12, and made 35 saves. So all round, pretty decent performance from Aztral. His team did lose to Gen G, and you know, to lose to the eventual tournament winners isn't a bad thing at all. And they took him to Game 7 as well. So Team Liquid did look very good. They did look very good. Now that I'm saying all this, I feel like maybe Aztral is a little bit too low on this list, but we're not going to change it now. He is going at 22. It was really hard to place some players because this list is absolutely stacked. Like, it's just ridiculously stacked at the moment. So to make it on this list means that they've had a decent tournament, right? So there's no bad thing about being number 22 on this list. Number 21 is next, and that goes to Comm on V1. Now, yep, 2 V1 players lower down on the list. They did make top 8, but for me, they didn't do enough as an individual performance to get higher up on this particular list. As a team, like I said, it was solid. They probably wanted to do a bit better than they did, but it was still solid. You know, Comm played 20 games, 13 goals, only 4 assists, and 35 saves. Comm, for me, is the player. He's sort of the assist player, I guess, but not really, because he's doing a lot off of the ball. And that's where Beast Mode sort of comes in and gets his goals or assists, you know. Comm here with more goals than Beastmode. I don't know if that's really what you want from this team. Again, Comm, you know, he's a goal scorer as well, don't get me wrong, but he needed probably Beastmode to be there a bit more, and Beastmode didn't do that, and it may have brought Comm's performance down a little bit as well. But still respectable stats, and 21 on this list for a top 8 finish isn't bad. It's not bad at all. Number 20 is Itachi. So now, Itachi's stats, you know, they look pretty good, and he did do pretty good, and AcroniK were doing very good. Swept this stage, went through at top seed, and, you know, most people probably had them winning this tournament. Maybe not before the major. Well, before the major, yeah, most people probably would have had them winning it. I didn't, personally. I did have Gen G. I won't try and gloat too much. When I was watching the major unfold, you know, I'm looking at AcroniK and thinking, nobody's going to beat them. Nobody's going to beat them. They're more oxygen, you know, nobody's going to beat them. It's going to be them two in the final, unless they obviously cross paths in the quarters or the semis. But for me, AcroniK just looked like a really well-oiled machine. And so when they bowed out in the quarterfinals, obviously a bit of a shock to everybody. They didn't play very well at all against Moist, really not good at all. And that did definitely lower Itachi's rating on this list. Still 20th is still not bad at all, considering they went out through 5th through 8th in the quarterfinals. But yeah, I can't really put him any higher on this list because of the players that are above him. It's as simple as that. And at number 19, a player directly above him, is AcroniK from Team Liquid. And for me, AcroniK, he had a little bit of a shaky start in Swiss stage, and maybe that didn't do him any favours to be sort of on the lower half of this list. 19th still very good, but his team did bail in the quarterfinals. For me, AcroniK was the standout player towards the end of the Swiss stage, and against JNG, I thought AcroniK looked the most dangerous player on his team. He played 29 games, scored 16 goals, assisted 13 times and made 50 saves. Pretty good stats, you know, not bad at all, the saves especially. And for me, it was hard. It was hard to put AcroniK lower, but it was sort of difficult to put him a little bit higher as well because, you know, like I said, the teams that went out in the quarterfinals, it's hard to put those players any higher than sort of the lower end of the list, despite a few. But for me, AcroniK, he had a great tournament. He really did. I mean, he started off slowly, like I said, but he come into it really nicely, started to take over a little bit, and he was playing really well. He was playing really, really well. And Liquid could have easily won that series against Gen G, you know, and it could have been a whole different story. But they didn't. They lost to the eventual winners. Again, nothing to be ashamed of. Number 18, we have ExoTiik on AcroniK. Now, ExoTiik only played 15 games. The AcroniK boys didn't play many games because they were sweeping pretty much everybody. He scored 12, assisted 7, and made 28 saves. I thought ExoTiik was having a really good tournament up until AcroniK went out, up until that Moist series. He looked pretty solid, as did his two teammates. He was making a lot of plays with the Fennec and allowing Vatira to sort of swoop in and take the goal. ExoTiik, although despite it only saying 7 assists, he was doing a lot of midfield battle work. He was winning the ball, he was rushing the ball when he needed to be. The typical ExoTiik plays that you'd usually see. And he was doing it pretty well, you know, he wasn't having a bad tournament at all. It's just a shame that on the day AcroniK as a team didn't turn up. They didn't turn up at all. And for me, ExoTiik, one of those players that didn't turn up when it mattered most, and that's why he's a little bit lower down on the list. Same with Itachi. So that is why I have ExoTiik at 18. I have a little list there on the right side of the screen in case you haven't noticed, or in case you forget the players that I've already said. A little list is forming on the right there. You can see so the players that we've already seen. Number 17 is Sypical from FaZe. 31 games played, 18 goals, 11 assists, 50 saves. Really good all-round performance from Sypical. Couldn't put him any higher than 17. I thought he was the third best player on FaZe. Now that's not a bad thing at all because he's still number 17 on this list. So that's kind of giving you some spoilers. But he played well. He was having a good tournament. He was very, very much a threat to the opposition just as much as most players on this list, but not quite getting the goals and the assists maybe that he would have loved. Well, he got plenty of goals actually, to be fair to him, for his role. But he was more that driving force, you know, that he was sort of the first player of each play. You know, he drives the ball forward. He has very, very good control of the ball in the air. He drives that ball forward, further up the pitch, and allows Mist to swoop in, maybe Firstkiller to swoop in. You see what I mean? So Sypical, he does that role that's not really anything crazy. Maybe that's why he doesn't get ranked too highly on these lists, and maybe that's a little bit harsh. But for me, the 16 players that I have above him played better overall, in my opinion. Number 16 is probably going to shock you a little bit that it's this low, but the stats aren't amazing, and he did his role, you know, he did his job and allowed his teammates to take over, and that is Noly. Now, Noly at 16, people are going to be like, whoa. Let me explain. For me, Noly is that type of player where he's very grounded, he knows his role, he knows his job, he knows what he's got to do. And he'd done his job very well, you know, he'd done his job. His job isn't to do anything crazy, it's to allow his teammates, AcroniK and AppJack, to go and make some plays and lock it down at the back. And that's what he did with the 48 saves. Only 11 goals, but again, that's not his role. That's not his role. And 18 assists, which is decent. That's pretty good. But to get high up on these lists, I think you've got to be taking over games, doing really good stuff, making crazy plays. You know, Noly, although has great mechanics in my opinion, and definitely can make some great plays, he didn't need to do that at this tournament. He didn't need to because his teammates were playing so well. So he just did his job and did his role. That's why maybe Noly is a little bit at the lower end of the list. A very respectable position. You know, he did his job. He did his role. I hope you like the picture, by the way, that I made of Noly and his death stare with his trophy. Number 15 then is Joreuz. Now, during Swiss stage, you know, Joreuz for me, definitely a top 10 player. I think most of us thought that Oxygen were going to go all the way, or one of the teams that could definitely go all the way, or should go all the way. Unfortunately, they had a disappointing quarterfinal. You know, they kind of choked. They were the better team. They started off better, and they ended up losing to FaZe, who are a well-oiled machine. But Oxygen definitely should have won that series, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. They choked. As simple as that. They were playing so well leading up to it. Like, better than I've ever seen a team play before. I mean, they're literally pre-jumping each other at a major. You know, they're pre-jumping each other and scoring as well. It's just, I've not seen teams do that consistently. I've seen it before, but not as consistent as Oxygen were and as confident as they were, which is crazy to me. Number 14, we have AcroniK on G2. Now, yep, G2 didn't make it out Swiss, but AcroniK still, for me, by far the best player on G2, as he usually is. Overall rating, he was the best player at the LAN. You may have seen that stat floating around on Twitter or something. Yeah, but overall rating, if you're just looking at the overall rating, he was number 1. But obviously he only played 19 games, so it's easy to get a better rating with the less games you've played. He scored 11 goals, 22 assists and 41 saves. He's just an all-round player, you know? He's one of those players that can just take over and do it all, quite literally do it all, and he did. Those stats prove it. But unfortunately his team didn't get out of Swiss, so it doesn't help his ranking on this list. The same story with a lot of these players, unfortunately. But AcroniK, not the highest player on this list that didn't get out of Swiss stage. We'll see if you can guess who it is. He's not next, so you've got a bit of time to guess. You can probably guess who it is, but yeah, he's not the player on this list, or he's not the highest player on this list that didn't get out of Swiss stage. Number 13 is next up, and we have Oaly on Oxygen. Again, very similar to Joreuz. He was having a crazy good performance, but that last series they played against FaZe just didn't help their placings on this list. 13 for a quarter-finalist, you know, that's still really good, really good. And Oaly, I think, doesn't get the props that he probably deserves. I thought he was brilliant this tournament, I really did. I thought the whole of Oxygen were, but I thought Oaly was really good. Goals, 17 in 18 games. 14 assists in 18 games, you know, these are really solid stats. And 18 saves as well. For me, he was really doing a lot of work to allow his teammates to sweep in as well. And him and Archie were really good, and Archie and Joreuz are really good as well with each other. I mean, as a team, this team has, in my opinion, the absolute highest skill ceiling. They can be the best team in the world when they're putting it together, no doubt about it. But it's about that consistency. You know, maybe the break on Saturday, not having to play, didn't do them any favours. Maybe that's why they didn't come out too hot. Well, they did come out quite hot against FaZe, like I said earlier. They looked good. They just choked the series. It's as simple as that. Number 12, we have Daniel. So Daniel is the highest player on the list that didn't get out of Swiss stage. If you guessed right, well done. Give yourself a pat on the back because I have no presents for you. But yeah, Daniel, 21 games played, 20 goals in 21 games. Pretty crazy. Only 5 assists and 49 saves. So this is the kind of performance you'd expect out of, for instance, Beastmode. This is the kind of stats you'd want to see from Beastmode, who did get out of Swiss, but his stats were nowhere near as good as Daniel's. Daniel, always really good stats, always really good performances. You know, ever since he started on LANs, he had maybe 1 or 2 shaky series right at the beginning of his first LAN. Since then, he's just been lights out. He is unbelievable, an unbelievable player. And honestly, deserves better than what he's getting at the moment. SSG really disappointing, but I did predict them not to make it out of Swiss. You know, I think SSG don't have that killer instinct that they used to have with Rattles. I just don't see it. I can't see it at all. I think LJ, he isn't on this list, but he was decent. He had decent performances. Same with Arsenal, but they just don't have that killer instinct that other teams do. You know, they don't have enough to just push through into Championship Sunday at the moment on a LAN, in my opinion. Will we see things change? Who knows? I think this team definitely can be good. Don't get me wrong. They've got a lot of potential and a very high skill ceiling if they put it together. But so far, it's only one player that's really performing on this team, and that's your man on the screen right there. Number 11 is next up, and that is Mist from FaZe Clan. You're always going to be in the shadow of Firstkiller when you're on his team, so to be able to put stats up like this when you have a Firstkiller on your team is pretty impressive. 18 goals in 31 games, 13 assists, and 58 saves. 58 saves, that's a lot of saves. Really good performance from Mist, in my opinion. Again, couldn't find an up-to-date picture of Mist, so ignore the Optic jersey. He is a FaZe player. Couldn't find a picture of him in a FaZe jersey for some reason. But yeah, Mist, really solid performance. Him and Firstkiller really good together, really good duo. And FaZe again finishing 3rd through 4th. I think they probably wanted more than that. I mean, obviously they wanted more than that. They want to win, right? Did they deserve more than that? They were really good. They look like a very good, well-oiled machine when they're putting it together. Very similar to the Comm Corp sort of thing, but just lacking something. I'm not sure what. But there's a little something that's lacking from FaZe just to get them over that finish line. And you know, 3rd through 4th is still a really good placement, and 11th for Mist is still really good as well. Number 10 is next, and we have Joyo from Moist. Now, I think at first glance, people will probably think this is a little bit overrated for Joyo, but he did have a bit of a rocky start to this LAN. He looked very nervous, not confident at all. I don't know if it's because him and Aztral were kind of tangling a little bit on the pitch. I noticed it a few times. They were sort of in each other's way, and I don't think Joyo could do what he just wanted to do because Aztral, you know, he's on the ball a lot. After Swiss stage, Championship Sunday, Joyo was fantastic. I think arguably their best player. Well, obviously not because I got him at 10th. But Championship Sunday specifically, arguably their best player. But obviously this list includes Swiss stage as well. So yeah, that kind of ranks him a little bit lower than his teammates. He played 38 games, most games played out of any players. Moist as a team played the most games out of anybody. They scored 20 goals, 18 assists and 47 saves, so really good across the board again. And I think that's why Joyo deserves to be top 10, you know, his stats are really good across the board. Yes, again, he had a really awkward start to the tournament, but as soon as Sunday hit, you know, he was lights out all day long, his whole team were, and he deserves to be top 10 in my opinion. Number 9 is next, and that goes to KV1, the defensive MVP of the tournament, KV1. Do I think he deserved that? Not too sure. Yeah, sure, he deserves it, right? There's other players that could have as well, but I think KV1 is definitely one of those players that could have definitely had that, and he did, which is great. And Team Secret, his team as a whole, performed unbelievably. They were fantastic all the way throughout the tournament, and far exceeded anyone's expectations. I don't think I had Secret winning a game in Swiss, let alone getting out of Swiss 3 games to 1. I think they were 3rd or 4th seed and going all the way to the semis, and could have easily won that game as well. You know, they had put a pretty decent performance up against Moist, and KV1 deserves definitely to be top 10 on this list. 25 games, 16 goals, 7 assists and 50 saves. So yeah, 2 saves a game on average, not bad at all. You know, that's arguably or definitely arguable for defensive MVP, and that's why he got it. So yeah, KV1 in 9th and deservedly top 10. Number 8 is Archie. Archie for me was the MVP in the Swiss stage. Swiss stage only, Archie for me number 1. I thought he was unbelievable. 19 goals in 18 games, so that's a crazy stat on its own. 11 assists and 30 saves as well. So across the board, really good from Archie. Again, similar to his teammates, could have been a lot higher up on this list, but because his team didn't make it all the way to the finals, you know, you can't really, they only played 18 games as well, you know, you can't put them much higher than where I've put them in my opinion. But Archie for me, obviously the quarterfinal bailout has deranked him on my list. Pre-jumping Joreuz every moment he got and connecting with the ball and scoring on a lot of occasions, that's crazy to me. That's the new meta right there, you know, if people can start mastering that sort of thing, nobody's going to be able to defend that. You're going to have to start pre-jump defending these people, because if they make it the meta, then it's just going to be crazy, honestly. Number 7 is next. And for me, a heavily underrated player at this LAN. I think a lot of people have given him props, but for me, I thought he was brilliant all the way throughout the LAN. And that's Sad from Team Secret. Now Sad, really good stats, 17 goals in 25 games, 11 assists and 50 saves. So similar to KV1 actually. Well, the same saves to KV1 and more goals and more assists, I believe, than KV1, his teammate. So, you know, you could have argued Sad, maybe defensive MVP, but in my opinion, he could have been MVP of the whole tournament. Could Sad. He was that good. He was that good all the way throughout. It's a shame that Team Secret didn't get to the final, because he probably would have had some sort of award go his way. I thought Team Secret were just brilliant all the way throughout. I was shocked at how well they did, and I think a lot of people were. But for me, Sad, he's always been a solid player. Very, very solid player. I can't remember what, I think it might have been, was it Worlds? I can't remember what LAN it was last season, but he had a really good performance, and I thought, why is there nobody talking about this guy, you know? He does so much for his teammates and the team, just off the ball, everything. He's doing everything. He's scoring, he's in the right places when he needs to be. Yeah, I mean, he's just a really good all-round player, is Sad, and I think could have easily been higher up on this list, honestly, could have easily been higher up, but I settled for number 7. And number 6 next up is Vatira. Now, Vatira, I had him before the major number 1 on my list, and I think a lot of people did. I think 95% of people probably have Vatira at number 1. And for me, still the best player in the world, but, you know, some people after this tournament have closed that gap, no doubt about it. He played 15 games, not a lot of games, 16 goals, so a really good stat for goals, 9 assists and 21 saves. Vatira, for me, had a really good tournament. It's as simple as that. He had a really good tournament, but coming up against Moist, Moist just made AcroniK as a team look really quiet, you know? They couldn't do anything about it. Vatira, for me, still the best player on AcroniK against Moist, but not enough to get him over the line past Moist. Maybe his teammates were letting him down a little bit, and that's why I've got them ranked a lot lower, because I don't think ExoTiik or Itachi had a good game at all against Moist. Really not a great game at all. For me, Vatira, standout player on this team still, but only in 6th. And I say only in 6th. 6th still very good, don't get me wrong, obviously, but low for Vatira, but you can't put him ahead of the next players that I have on this list. And starting at number 5, we have AcroniK. AcroniK, his first LAN, and you wouldn't have known it. You would not have known that it was his first LAN. Pure confidence. He looked like, to me, he was playing just as well as he did or does when he's at home online. 31 games played, 21 goals, 15 assists, 48 saves across the board, really solid. And his team won the tournament. And he played a massive part in his team winning this tournament. Massive part. There was a lot of talk about him being a little bit nervous for his first LAN. Yeah, there was just no sign of that. No sign of nerves at all. No sign of nerves at all in his gameplay or anything. I think he was just absolutely solid. You know, there was one series where Genji looked really bad, and that was against Oxygen, but Oxygen were making everybody look bad at some points. So when I watched that, I thought, I predicted Genji to win. They're not going to win this tournament now. Not after watching them against Oxygen. I mean, they looked horrendous. But I think that's because Oxygen was so good. But yeah, AcroniK at number 5 deserved it. Could have been higher on this list again, but for me, the next 4 players deserve to be ahead of him. And at number 4, oh yeah, I hope you like the picture of AcroniK, by the way. I think he looks really good with that crown on his head. He shaved his hair as well, so yeah. Number 4 is Rise. Now, I have Rise this high up because, although, again, looked a little bit rocky at stages, not as much as Joyo did in the Swiss, but a little bit at some stages. He played 38 games and scored 29 goals, 19 assists, and 51 saves. That's crazy stats across the board from Rise. Absolutely putting in the work and absolutely deserves to be top 5 on this list, or top 4 I should say. He's played 38 games and still scoring 29 goals. Deservedly top 4, like I said. There's not really much else to say. He was just really good, really solid. I mean, the Swiss stage for Moist wasn't amazing. I wouldn't have had him this high up purely just on Swiss stage, but yeah, Championship Sunday, Moist absolutely turned up as a team and individuals as well. They were all brilliant. Number 3 is next, and that is Firstkiller. Now, despite Firstkiller bailing out 4th again, he's still number 3 on this list, and that's because, look at the numbers. The numbers speak for themselves for starters, and his performance on the pitch was brilliant as always. He is the danger man on this team, you know. Every time he got the ball, it looked like something was going to happen, in FaZe's favour. But with 31 games played, 21 goals, 22 assists, and 73 saves. Those are just crazy numbers across the board, you know, absolutely insane numbers. 73 saves is unbelievable. Maybe Firstkiller deserved the defensive MVP, who knows. Maybe maybe KV1 made a lot of last-ditch saves, and that's why he got it. And maybe I just wasn't aware of that. I'm not too sure. But yeah, Firstkiller in 3rd. Couldn't really put him any lower, honestly. I couldn't put him higher either, though. For me, the top 2 players are just that bit ahead of the rest of this list. Almost in a league of their own a lot of the time throughout the tournament. And depending on which team won, probably would have decided who I had at number 1. So you can kind of guess who's going to be top 2 now. If you haven't already, have a little look on the side there. What names are missing? 2 very big names. Starting at number 2, of course, we have Aztral. Aztral for me was the MVP until he lost in the final to Genji. Which sucks because he was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable throughout this tournament, especially Championship Sunday. Championship Sunday, I don't know what it is, but Aztral just, something clicked, you know, something clicked and he thought, I'm taking over. I am going to take over. It was during the AcroniK series, I think. He just absolutely took over. Played 38 games, scored 25 goals, 18 assists and 42 saves. Really good across the board once again, and deservedly second on this list. Could have easily been first. Could have easily been first, but not quite, because first place goes to none other than ApparentlyJack on Genji. Now, winner of the tournament, MVP of the tournament, 31 games played, 28 goals, 14 assists, 57 saves. The goals to games ratio with that amount of games played is crazy. That is just nuts. And for me, deservedly number 1. I think, like I said, I had Aztral as MVP right up until the final, where Moist didn't have a great series, and ApparentlyJack absolutely took over. You know, he absolutely took over. I think the only bad series he really had was against Oxygen, but Genji as a whole just didn't have a great series against Oxygen, and Oxygen were one of those teams where if they're playing their best, they're going to make you look bang average, you know, no matter who you are. But fortunately for Jack, that loss didn't deter him or his teammates. They went on to win the whole thing, and Jack deservedly getting the MVP reward in the end. So there's the list on the right hand side of the screen. Tell me your thoughts on the list. Tell me who you think I've maybe underrated. Tell me who you think I've maybe overrated. All comments are welcome, within reason, of course. Everybody's allowed their opinion, and all your opinions are more than welcome in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, please do leave a like. I do really appreciate it, and please do subscribe to the channel as well, because that helps me a lot. Again, comment below your opinions on this list and tell me what your list looks like. You know, I'm very intrigued to hear other people's opinions always, so do let me know what you think. I'm going to sign off now though. This video may have gone a little bit too long, I'm not too sure, but I hope you guys enjoyed nonetheless, and I will speak to you all very soon.